Hello, everyone, Lubbock and Plainview.
Hello.
Doing well?
Yes, sir. How about yourself?
Doing great.
Hello.
Hi there.
Good, good.
Looks like the cameras are better.
I kind of worked on them for you.
All right, good. Good deal. We'll get going here in a minute. Let me say this to everyone. If I'm kind of in the dark here, let me change the lights. If some of you, I was asked a question about the textbook. Is it necessary to have a textbook? It, I would say that it's probably helpful in most cases. Am I going to double check or have anyone double check for you to make sure you have that textbook? I'm not going to do that. I really can't do that. But will I have you do things that you absolutely have to have a textbook for? I will not. I will give you the material that you need. I will put that in my study guides that maybe Thursday I'll be ready to have one. I honestly am still learning this textbook because it's brand new to me, but it's not brand new. It's just the way that they have it organized. The material I've known since I was your age, because I was in art history class. And, so I know the terminology and everything else, just the way they have it organized. I'm trying to get my feet under me as to how it's organized so I can present it to you well. But if you have the textbook and you've looked at it, you realize I'm cutting a lot out, or I'm just kind of skimming the surface on a lot of things, and then I'll be pointing and focusing to certain things in there. So I'm not going to go through and penalize anyone if they don't get it. If you would like some sources that are helpful, right, Taylor, they may be helpful to you, to find a rental source or another source, send me an email, anyone in any class, and I will send those sources to you because they may be helpful to you. I'm not trying to undercut the bookstores on any campus. They do us a great service, and more power to them, but if you can save money, save money. And in the previous textbook that we had, it was in its second, third edition, I think. One of the students came to me and they said, I found this and they were holding up the first edition. We were using the third edition of the textbook. I found it in a garage sale over at Tech Terrace. And I said, how much did you pay for that book? And they said, $1. And I said, wow, great. Because it was going for around $112 then in the bookstore for the third edition. And they said, is there much difference between these? And I said, almost none. There are some changes, but not anything essential or dramatic. So come on in. How are you? Good to see you. All that said, if you want sources for the book rental, some other things that you can check online, if you don't have the book now, if it takes you a week or 2 weeks to get it, whatever, you want to rent it, you want to have it accessible online, you want to have your laptop open, as long as you're not cruising internet instead of looking at your textbook, I'm fine with all that, okay? So whatever makes it good for you, but like I said, I will try to give you the essence of what you need, and I will work hard to do that. I'm gonna try to pick up where we were before. Some of you went to First Friday Art Trail. Some of you left here with me the other day and walked over on this campus to the gallery and got to see some of the artwork over there. If anyone went to First Friday Art Trail, or you went to the gallery and you'd like to earn some extra credit, and I know you folks in Plainview, they used to have their own art trail on certain dates. It's not the first Friday, but COVID changed so much, but there is a great gallery there at Wayland. It's in the basement of the library at Wayland. It's the Abraham Gallery. I'll mention if anything comes up as an exhibit that you could earn extra credit doing, going to that exhibit, I'll talk about that. But I'm not giving you any set guidelines for doing that. Just write your thoughts in a few sentences, short paragraph. If you want to send me an email with a photo of the thing that you saw that impressed you, or things, more than one, then do that. I'm not going to say give me a 500-word theme. I don't want to read all that. You don't want to write all that, right? Come on in. Anyway, I'm going to keep it simple. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. I will say this, if there's anyone new in class today, we've had trouble and confusion about the Lubbock class and getting people there. I've had people go to other campuses. But if anyone's new, we'll make sure to come to us and get the syllabus, and you need to do the sign-on list that acknowledges that you agree to the syllabus, and then you're officially enrolled. I'll put a check mark by your name, and when they ask us soon for enrollment, then we'll have that done. So, any questions about that or anything else I've talked about so far? Yes, sir.
Say we're like in a weird scenario where we can't make it out to Monday and we're in public.
Yes. Make it where? Let me know about that, because they frown on that. I would say yes, but barring extreme weather conditions or anything else, hope we don't have what we had February, they want you to attend where you're assigned. But now a good point about that question. If you have to miss, and some of you have had illness and other things going on, I pray that I won't have anything going on, but if I do, I will do my best to record my lecture, either here in this lab or from home, and then post it as a link on YouTube. And if you missed a class anytime and you don't have that link, email me and say, Mr. Hope, I need that link. And you can go to, I've got a little site on YouTube that they've set up for me because they record the class, and it's there, and you can go to any particular class that you've missed. Thursday's lecture was the only one that you might need if you missed that class, but you can always go back to it, and some students go back and refer to it. I said, did you fast forward through me? They said, well, some parts. Anyway, that's all right too. So you get to the advantage of that. The other classes don't have that advantage unless they set it up to do that. And I know people are doing these green screen things and all this stuff, but this works pretty well for us. And the setup, the technology is working pretty well right now, and so it's good. So yeah, in the case of something like that, you just refer mainly to the YouTube link and be good. And not have to go to another campus. That's what they're saying to me, to tell you about that. All right, any other questions? It's good. All right, so if you're not up to speed and you've not filled out forms and got the syllabus and sign-on sheet and all that, make sure that you get up to speed there. I'm going to start off today, let's see if I can get there. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try to open this folder and then start with the lecture and kind of pick up where we were last time. And I'm a Mac person, so I do everything on Keynote. And when I put it on as I put these things I have to export them as PowerPoint documents, my Keynote. Some of you Mac people, you do Keynote. Keynote, I think, has more features than PowerPoint, but I convert these to, oh, that's a nice message to see. Go ahead. Repair it. Hope it works. Yeah, okay, good. All right, fine. Okay, so here's where we were the other day, and let's see if I can get to the point where we stopped. We talked about Maya Lin's monument, and we'll say some more about that. And we talked about this idea of, you know, art, historic sites, and so on, and the importance of them to world culture, and them being destroyed. And I'm sure now that, well, that's an interesting thing going on there. Hold on. There we go. That's better. Now, I'm getting someone's screen there. Is that Lubbock? Am I seeing your screen? You might check your camera button and see if you can get off your screen.
What screen?
There you go. Okay. I was not seeing the class, I was seeing the laptop screen
Oh,
for some
okay.
reason. All right, good. All right, very good. Okay, so we talked about this the other day, and honestly, the first part of this today, last Thursday, maybe this coming Thursday, it's mainly introduction and talking about what art is and all the different impacts that art has on our lives. But we talked about this building that was built in 130 in Syria, and it was blown up by ISIS just because they like to blow things up and destroy anything that's not in their realm of what they think is acceptable in the world. We talked about conserving art, the importance of that. We talked about art therapy and how students like this child who had been captured by Boko Haram, which is this horrible group that kidnaps women and girls and treats them in horrible ways, but they're working with this student who had been saved, and you can see this drawing. It's not a typical child's drawing. I mean, it's full of violence, but that's what they saw. But art as a way of trying to deal with that and trying to bring this person to a point where they can live through that. I think we stopped about here last time. Is that about right? A little further, but I want to make a point about this, and that's not what I want. This is Leni Riefenstahl's picture, and let me see if I can find the page this is on. She was, I'm not sure that Hitler had a love interest at all. He was conflicted in all sorts of ways. But look at the number of people that are here at this rally for, this is the National Socialist Party in Germany. And this is 1935 when they were revved up to the max. And their idea was to take over the world. They almost did it. Thank goodness for the men and women that stopped them from doing that. But we hear a lot about socialism, right? And there are people that think, oh, well, you know, it's pretty cool. But I've talked to people, I mentioned this, I have friends in Germany, and we got to stay with them when we were in Europe. And the grandmother who had lived through this period of time said, how could we have ever let this happen? Please tell your family to never let this happen in America. And so I'm telling you all, never let this happen. It's very important. And art and propaganda, we'll talk about later, was very much a part of this, because it softened the people and it kind of steered their thinking in a certain way. So art can be a weapon in a lot of ways. And we talked about censorship and the fact that this artwork, one of the largest statues of Buddha in Afghanistan was blown up by ISIS. There was a plan to move it. There was the money to do it, and ISIS said, "Let's just blow it up. We got plenty of explosives." And the text talks about this work that was slashed. And there are people that destroy things. They're sad, sick people right in the world, and their motivation is wrong. And of course, the illegal trafficking of art, I think we talked about, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, at least $10 billion. And if ISIS can't sell it on the black market, that's what they like to do. And they're not the only ones. There are a lot of bad people in the world. They'll blow it up. But if they can sell it and make money and buy weapons or whatever they desire, they'll do it. This is on page 20 in your text, and it shows this monument to the people who died in Austria during the Holocaust. And I know that there's a lot of stuff out there where people say there was never such a thing as the Holocaust. I've been to Dachau, and I can't explain or describe the feeling that I got being there, where they had killed untold numbers of Jews. They're in Germany and other places in Europe. But this is a monument that's really a healing thing to honor those people who died in Austria. And it's hard to believe that that kind of thing happened, but it definitely did happen. So don't let anyone tell you that it did not. There's documentation for it. But one of the things that we saw there were items left over by the people. They'd just strip them of everything and tell them they were going to send them to the showers, and they never came back. And I don't want to dwell on that too much. But art helps remind us of these things that we should never, ever forget. And your text talks about, and again, I'm kind of skimming over this, but it's just different aspects. The religion and spirituality is very important. And places like this, I don't know if anyone here has ever been in a cathedral or not. We have one in Amarillo. You've been in a cathedral? Where? Santa Fe? Yes. What was your feeling there? Are you Catholic? Big? And how did it make you feel? Besides in being in... Were people talking loudly, or were they talking quietly?
The voice echoed off the
Yeah.
wall, so they spoke. And they didn't have to speak too loudly.
Okay, so they didn't speak very loudly, but it echoed. It is an immense space, and it's supposed to be, and you can see, we'll talk about these archways and so on here in this picture, and I've lost my image there. Let me go back to this. There we go. This is Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, and we'll talk about Notre Dame later, which is the one that they tried to burn down. Amarillo has a cathedral there, and the idea is to make this space that is not only big and decorated with stained glass windows and other art and so on, to make you feel a sense of awe. But most of these places you walk in and people are loud on the street, and you walk in off the street. I mean, the streets of Paris are loud. There's a lot of traffic and so on. You walk in here and people are whispering because it's a sense of reverence in a place of worship. Whether you're of that faith or not, it's something very special. And so your text talks about this. Most of you are familiar with this image, right? This is not in your text. I saw it on a decal on a pickup window, right? I know 3 yards here in Levelland that have a little shrine of the Virgin of Guadalupe. And if you know this story or not, it's supposed to be an appearance there in Mexico that the Virgin appeared in the New World to this peasant boy and this robe and the miraculous appearance of the roses and the Virgin's image on there. Now that's supposed to be there in the Basilica, this church of Guadalupe in Mexico City. But people revere this image. Why do we see these little shrines and why do we see these decals on windows? What reason would people do that? I'm asking you a question. All right. Because they feel like that's a connection, right? A religious connection, a spiritual connection to the Virgin and what the Virgin stands for. I mean, this is the mother of Christ, the mother of Jesus. And regardless of how you feel about your faith or this faith, it's a revered image in much of the world, and here in Levelland, Texas, and in your town somewhere, wherever. And your text talks about this statue in Africa. This is in the Congo, Republic of Congo. This goes back to their belief, and many people say this is a pagan belief, because it's almost like a voodoo thing, but these people would come and they would go to the priest and they would give him their needs or maybe their wishes, sometimes to harm an enemy, and then drive a nail in that wooden sculpture that was supposed to make that come true. So people have a lot of different beliefs about things, and sometimes the symbols of these things are, and this is in your text on page 22, are things that we don't know in our culture. And your text talks about this, that the hand that holds the drum, and you see this is Shiva, the lord of the dance in the Hindu religion. The hand that holds the drum beats out the rhythm of the cycle of the universe, and then the hand that holds the symbol, that means to have no fear. And then the other hand outstretched there points to the foot. Supposedly, the faithful can find refuge there. And the hand that holds the flame, lots of hands, right, represent destruction. Now, you would never know this by looking at this if you hadn't studied it. So the thing I would say to you, when you see symbols like this, sometimes you have to dig a little bit. You have to research, Google it, right, or whatever. But do some reading and figure this out. Y'all don't know how fortunate, blessed, maybe cursed sometimes we are with the internet. But it's a great thing, because when I was your age, I had to find out something. When I was a young student, I say, and then I stop and say, I was a young student at one time, a long time back. But when we had to learn something, we had to go to the library. We had to go to the Reader's Guide. We had to do research. There was no computer anything, except there was a big one on campus that helped figure out things from the architecture students. And they used punch cards. It's a totally different world. So you have the blessing of going to look up things. And I'm, again, kind of quickly going through these things here. It shows this Congo, Africa traditional tribal thing. I've had students from different countries in Africa, and they can tell you what tribe they belong to. I had a young lady wear her tribal, part of her tribal dress, not the formal dance thing and all that she used. But I said, is that still very important in your culture? And she said, absolutely. We're proud to be part of this tribe. And so we hold that tradition. Now, she was a Christian, but she still held on to that tradition of her tribe. Now, here's this Jace here, familiar, Emily Jace here, doing this thing because the people in Palestine couldn't come to across the border, so she fulfilled their request and took photographs of them this person had wanted to visit the father's grave, and so, they weren't allowed to enter that country. I'm not sure what the reasons are. Anyway, some of these things, this is about, this girl who carried this mattress around and talks about the importance of having a safe campus because of the sexual assaults that have been on this campus. If you look, if you have your text, page 24 talks about this. Now, they give you 5 steps, 5, count them 5, right? I'm going to give you 4. I'm going to simplify it later because one of these steps, don't write these down because we'll focus on this later. But to look at a work of art, I'll teach you the steps of describing it and then analyzing it. It says obtain, well that should really be part of those first 2 steps. And then interpretation and judgment. This is really critical thinking applied directly to art. But we'll focus on that directly. And your text shows this picture of Napoleon who actually posed there on the throne, who actually took the crown, had the Pope come to crown him. He just took the crown and crowned himself. He was king of the world, right? Well, he was for a little while. Some of you went to the gallery over there and saw Napoleon's defeated after being in Russia. It was not a pretty world for any of those people. Margaret Bourke White is in your text on next page, and it talks about how the contrast of a photograph like this one shows these people. Now, what Ida went through, and before that there were floods in parts of Tennessee, and thousands of people their homes were washed away. We saw Ida sweep through. We've got other storms coming into parts of the United States and other parts of the world. Here are these people who were lined up to get assistance, get food, and then they're standing in front of this billboard that says, "There's no way like the American way." So what a contrast, right? Margaret Bourke White was a photographer that documented things that happened during the 30s, 40s, the Dust Bowl era, and the Depression. But these poor people, they needed help. And it wasn't the land of plenty for them exactly, except that they were getting help because America's that kind of nation. It helps people. There's Margaret Bourke White. Now, you don't have this, the former text that I like to use, the 2 former texts, had a big illustration. Y'all see how wide your borders are on your textbook? You got this much space that's just white and a few comments in it. This should be a big picture. This is in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Have any of you been there to D.C., the National Gallery? This is artwork that's owned by us, right? The American taxpayers. And Jaden, did you say you'd been to D.C.? Okay. Did you go to the National Gallery while you were there? It's right across the street from Congress. But it's filled with art that's owned by the American people, the American taxpayers' money, us that pay taxes. And here's this painting. Now, it's kind of impressive, right? But imagine seeing this painting almost 4 feet tall and over 7 feet wide. Wow. It just fills your view. And that's exactly what Frederick Church wanted. Have any of you been to Niagara Falls? It's on your list, though, right? You need to go. You can hear it for a mile away. And my aunt and uncle lived in Ohio when I was growing up. So my dad went to see his sister, and we saw the family, and we took a trip up to Niagara Falls. It's breathtaking. It's crazy. My parents went back a few years later and rode the Maid of the Mist, the little ship that goes into the waterfall and all. And they told me about that, and I said, I'm glad you told me after you did it, because I would have been worried. But during 1857, this is the period before the Civil War, people were exploring this country, finding out what was in the West, but finding out the beauty that was in this country. And Frederick Church wanted this huge painting to captivate people and say, wow, this is truly amazing. And it's very realistic what he did. If you go, there's a barge that's upriver from this that sank, I don't know, in the 1930s or 40s. It's still there. It's caught kind of like in a whirlpool, and it's just stuck down into the river there. Water whirling around it, but you feel this mist coming up, and you hear the roar. You have to shout to someone who's standing right next to you. It's so loud. It's incredible. But didn't church do a good job of capturing this? So reflecting the world and trying to show things as they really are is very important. So your text throws that in there. And past events like this attack on the Sanjo Palace in Japan, this tries to capture the horror and the drama of this fire that was there. I mean, if you have paper walls, it's a fire hazard, right? A lot of wood and paper. Anyway, and it talks about decorating spaces and talk about elaborate. But this room was actually moved. It's not in France anymore. It's moved to the Metropolitan Museum. They took the entire room apart and moved it to the edge of Central Park there in New York City. It's wild what people can do. And of course, objects that are just simple and useful, but beautiful. And here's this light green glaze, this kind of crackle on it. It's called celadon, but a beautiful piece that's normal everyday use, but not every day. And then this shows this South Dakota Indian beaded bag that was done in the early 1900s. These weren't made really to use. They were made to sell, but just beautifully done, decorated. And then the idea of what art can do, it can capture emotion. Some of you may not get this. You look at it, I'm not going to go around and ask everyone what their feelings are about this. If you're looking at page 29, if you have your text, Robert Motherwell did this. He called this an elegy to the Spanish Republic. And the author talks about here how this artwork Motherwell did sought to express the grief for the country and the way of life that happened in the Spanish Republic, to the horror of war there. And I don't know why part of that title is cut off there, but anyway. Now you may not get that at all when you see this. It just looks like some blobs of color, right? But remember what I said, that when we look at a work of art, we read a poem, we read a story, it requires us to kind of come part way, right? To try to think about what the artist, in this case, message is, the poet's message, the songwriter's message, how it gets to us. Frida Kahlo, have any of you seen the movie Frida? It's pretty powerful. Selma Hayek did this movie. She had a passion for doing this movie. She played Frida Kahlo in it, and it's very artistically done. It's this great music. I have the track on. I play sometimes just when I'm working. Has a great Mexican music. But here's the two Fridas. So she's talking about, and Frida Kahlo, it expresses it really well in the movie, portrays it. She was in a wreck, a bus wreck or trolley wreck, there in Mexico, and a bus accident. And she was hurt in bed for almost a year, never thought she'd recover. But this is talking about, of course, her heart here, and the two Fridas, and the different things that happened to her, and they're holding hands, and European dress and the Mexican dress. So she had that combination of cultures. But you might not know all that when you look at it. Again, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you have to dig and to think about what the artist's message was and what in the world could this mean. And so you have to do a little bit of digging to find that out. Now this is a close-up of Hieronymus Bosch. That's a name, isn't it? Hieronymus Bosch. The Garden of Earthly Delights, and your text has some insight into it, but it shows paradise on the left, Adam and Eve there with God in the garden and all the creation there. and in all the things, and it says the Garden of Earthly Delights, all the things that could give pleasure to people, and it gets kind of wild. Maybe I shouldn't show you a close-up of it, but anyway, on the right there, it's damnation. It's hell. So from paradise to hell, and all the different things that it could be. Critics, if they're really honest, they'll say, I've studied Bosch and he didn't write much about this. We really don't know what he was meaning with this. There are all kinds of symbols from the time, and some of them we don't understand, and some of them are just in Bosch's mind. But it's an amazing piece. You can see it's a folded piece. It's 3 parts. It's what we call a triptych, but it's mounted together. This is in the museum in Prado in Spain. And I'm sorry that's not, that's the AIDS Memorial Quilt. It talks about causes and how things like this quilt, if you have your text, page 31, and then this work here, to show endangered species, animals at risk. Anyway, I'm going to escape from that, and again, this is just showing you things that art can be, right? And so it's just sort of a survey and just a glimpse, kind of skimming over what art can be. So let me kind of skip through this now. I'm not going to read through all that, but basically this painting, and if you have your text, it's on page 35, Barnett Newman, that's the painting, right? So it's 17 feet tall. It's in the museum, the National Gallery of Canada. Purchased this, and they purchased it at the time for $1.5 million US, 1990. In Canadian money, 1.76 million. People were upset because they used public money to buy this, and people said, really? I could have painted you some stripes for $100,000. Some of you are nodding, yes, I understand that. But Voice on Fire is the title of this, and if you read about it, it says that Barnett Newman started doing these, what they call color field paintings, just large areas of color. And his point was to express the reality that he thought was there. There's another painting here called B number 1. And he doesn't want to show anything from the natural world. This is totally different than Frederick Church's Niagara, right? It's just color. And sometimes just a plain color with a line or a stripe in it. But the idea was, he said, be who you are, be true to yourself, be all that you can. Sounds like an advertisement, right? But art is all kinds of things, right? To all kinds of people. So some people really get something from this, and some of you are just kind of shaking your heads like, I don't know what this means. And here's a Barnett Newman drawing, and then here's the Voice of Fire again. And just thinking about all the different kinds of things. You see that word about the 4th thing down there? It says aesthetic experiences. Now, aesthetics, any of you had a philosophy class? You may take one. Interesting to see how different thoughts are. But one of the fields in philosophy is the study of aesthetics. And it's the things that appeal to our sight. And the things that, how we think about beauty and what is beautiful or what is not beautiful and so on. So this gets involved in that. Again, I'm kind of skipping through things here. Art is a physical object made from artistic materials. It's tangible. It's something we can see. Portraits like that. Now here's Kai Guo-Qiang, who lives in America most of the time. And I want to skip out of this and see if I can play this for you. Yeah, let's look at Skyladder, if it will play. Sometimes it doesn't. But see if it will play. And if you have your text, that Skyletter's on page 39. Let's see if we can go to that. Yeah. He said he likes to work with gunpowder, and I thought it might play this. Maybe it will. No, it's not going to. Sometimes we have I'm not going to play the whole documentary film. I thought this was just a clip that I pulled up. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, here we go. Maybe it'll play it. So, he uses gunpowder.
Contemporary artists are playing on the big stage. I remember hearing about the explosion event and thinking, that guy really nailed it.
That's Kai Guo-Qiang.
Size first really big show. This combination of space and scale and invention. I saw it. It was clear to me that Psy arrived. That was the moment.
To say that the Chinese artist Psy Guo-Qiang has exploded on the contemporary art scene is no exaggeration. He is really turning the idea of what art is on its head. And if you go as far as him, how do you challenge yourself?
是的，天梯是最难实现的项目。ぜひここで地球から宇宙に向かってはしごを作っていきたいと思います。
Do you speak Mandarin?
这梯子要是多高啊？500。
There's his design.
米高，3公里。
Half a kilometer.
Early work has begun on the largest single installation ever commissioned.
His work does have a strong subtext. He is trying to do art with integrity.
奶奶的渔村是我想象天梯的地方。我在寻找跟看不见的一样的关系，因为已经挑战了第4次。有看到无？来妈，你看到无？你是哪看到无
Grandmother. Okay, so you can. There's what I thought I was going to play for you. You can see this ladder burning, but of course they want you to do the whole thing on Netflix. But I'm not going to spend any more time on this. But he set this up so with gunpowder, it burned and it released a helium-filled balloon into the sky, and it was attached to this ladder, which had explosives on it, gunpowder, and then he ignited it, and he's become an explosives expert. He's done drawings with gunpowder on paper and done all kinds of things. So, okay, that's art too, right? So, your text has these different artists, and some people say Kai Guo-Qiang, some people say Psy Guo-Qiang. That's probably more the Chinese pronunciation. And then you have things like this whirlpool made from beetle-killed pine and fir trees and stone, arranged there in this park, sculpture park. There's a species of beetle that came and killed these pine trees, and that's marketable now. Fire-burned forests, people are cutting those up and making tables out of them. A friend of mine in New Mexico who lost their home, they're taking that wood around their home and marketing that, places like New York. But there's the fire ladder, and 2 minutes and 30-second explosion event. And he's done a lot of other things we'll talk about later. Aesthetics, the philosophy or study of the arts, the nature of beauty, and what is beautiful and what's not, right? And so you have all of these different things, and everyone's idea of what's beautiful is different than someone else's, right? And it's as individual as you are. But there are also some commonalities there, and it talks about we experience with all our senses, And what's idealized beauty, we talked about that the other day. It varies from time to time. Look at pictures of your parents in their yearbook, right? Look at pictures of you when you were in junior high. Have styles changed? Oh yeah. And sometimes they come back, right? But in culture, in 2,000 years, styles change, and what's beautiful and what's not beautiful may change, and it may change in different cultures. And so you have these different ideas, and the text just is pointing all that out and talking about this painting and what its meaning is. I'm not going to stop and look at a lot of these things. This one's kind of gruesome. A maypole talking about war and the horrors of war. All this we'll look at later. We'll especially look at Henry Moore, and we'll look at the Toltec culture later. And this thrones, using aluminum foil and paper and plastic, making these thrones, as artists did. It's actually in Smithsonian, which is also owned by the American public, right? So yeah, everything from realistic self-portraits to things that are making a point about something. And we'll talk about the Islamic culture later, and this mihrab, which is set up, and I'm not keeping up with the text very well, but it's on page 46. But this is an area for people to go to prayer. But we'll talk about the idea, and it hasn't always been this way. In Islamic culture, images are forbidden now, right? In fact, people have been killed in Paris because they would show images of Muhammad. People thought it was irreverent, but here it's just become decoration. And these calligraphy excerpts from the Quran that are aimed at prayer and reverence. So you have art that does all kinds of things, and showing maybe the most famous work. And again, I'm not going to stop and look at all these things. Here's this 5-part thing we'll talk about later, narrow it down to 4 parts. Ladies, you may not know what this is. We'll talk about this later. This is a copy, the original from 1917. Richard Mutt, R. Mutt, was the pseudonym. I always say he was ashamed and he didn't want to put his real name on it. But in 1917, the first group of European artwork came to America, and Marcel Duchamp was thumbing his nose at the culture and took a urinal, a man's urinal, and just put it on a pedestal and titled it Fountain. Really? Okay. I like you too. So people were just outraged at this, and maybe they should have been, because here in an art gallery, an important gallery, showing things like this, showing art, important art, and he did this item from plumbing in a men's restroom. Now your authors talk about the culture this may have come from. But we won't dwell on that. Talks about the importance of culture, though. This Navajo man making a sand painting using different colors of pulverized rock and sand and pollens. And these things are just, they just last for a short period of time. They're made to be almost like a prayer, an offering. It talks about the culture. Can you imagine an entire face tattoo? Do you see people like this? But then in the Maori culture, that was something that they did do, especially for people that were important, like a chieftain, as part of their religious beliefs. I'm going to kind of skip through some things here. We'll talk about Picasso, and we'll talk about these other artists later. But I want to show, I'm going to get to, and I want to talk about 9/11 on Thursday, because that's coming up, 20th anniversary, right? Have any of you in here been to the 9/11 museum? Did you know someone, or did you just go? So what were your thoughts about being there?
I didn't realize how, like, I expected the footprints of the buildings to be a lot, like, bigger than they were, so, like, the fountains were super.
And were there a lot of people there?
No, it was raining that day, so now.
Oh, okay.
We're out, in, like, the museum part, there was a lot of.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in the museum, which is down underneath, right, yeah. I've not been, I've been there while the towers were still there. And I'll tell you on Thursday, my experience, about that day, with our family, because of my son and his wife, our oldest son lived there and worked just 4 blocks from World Trade Center. So I'll talk about that. And the importance of this tribute here in Light, and the importance of that memorial, and the remembrance of that. But your artists do all kinds of things, and your textbook hits on this art that's representational and some that even fools the eye. This French word trompe-l'œil, my French is non-existent, but it fools the eye or deceives the eye. Things that are non-objective, and they don't really depict anything, and then things that are totally abstract. They take objects from the real world and distort them on purpose. Here is Piet Mondrian, and I don't know why their pictures, this is the slides that come from the company, was doing very realistic art, but this is where he was started to step into something very different and be abstract what was there. Here's the tree. You can see the tree, right? But it's not realistic, because he's starting to emphasize certain directions and lines. And finally he said, I just want to get down to the pure essence of things. And so he took the verticals and the horizontals and primary colors, black and white, and red, yellow, and blue, and black. That's it. And some of these things, I'll show you later how he abstracted. That means he took from nature and he simplified it, changed it, distorted it, so it became something very different. And he felt like this was really true to the heart of what was represented in nature. So you have all kinds of ideas. You can see how the tree, they should have switched the slide. You can see how the tree is a little bit there, the societal apple tree. Do you see the vertical lines and the horizontal lines? And then he finally cut out any of the diagonal or curves or anything else and got to that. Okay, subject, form, and content. I want to get to that here in just a moment. But I want to talk about this idea, and this should be in your notes if you haven't written any notes at all. This word iconography. What is an icon? An icon is something that is a symbol that we remember, and it's emoticons are the same. Emojis are the same, right? You put a smiley face, that shows that you're happy, right? Are you happy about a thing? And a sad face, and so on. Well, icons are symbols in a work that give meaning. You don't have to write the entire thing down, but it's simplified. Now, this painting right here was done by Jan van Eyck. I'm going to show you a better picture of it. But you wrote down that icons are the system of images that represent something. Now, here's a better picture of this. This is an actual painting, evidently, of the ceremony. Now, marriage ceremony is a very reverent thing. I recall my wedding, and I was nervous, and I asked my dad, how long will this last? And he said, well, I hope it lasts for a long time. You're getting married, son. So it has lasted a long time. But here is a very reverent ceremony, and it is a holy ceremony in this case. Here's this man and woman. They're taking a vow to each other. They're giving a vow to each other. They're promising to be true to one another. Jaden, you with us? Okay. They're promising to be true to one another, right? It's serious. And it's a holy ceremony. Now, he took his shoes off, right? Man, those things are clunky. They hurt my feet. No, he took his shoes off because he's on holy ground. It's like Moses at the burning bush. God said, You're on holy ground. Take your shoes off. And he's holding up his hand. He's holding her hand. They just, how cute. They brought their dog to the wedding ceremony. But the dog is a symbol of something. What would it be a symbol of? What? Protection, maybe. Have you ever heard, go ahead, what? Maybe wealth. Have you heard of the dog's name Fido? It's sort of a cartoon name, but it's really a great name for a dog because it comes from the Latin, which means fidelity or faithfulness. Your dog's faithful, right? Those of you that have dogs, man, they're so glad to see you. My son and his wife just went, youngest son, on a long trip, and their dogs with dog sitters, but he said they can't get close enough to me when he got home because they're my companion. I'm their master, but I'm their companion. And so here's the dog as a symbol of faithfulness. Marriage has to have faithfulness to survive, right? And so this couple, and you may think, well, they waited a little long because it looks like she's maybe pregnant. I've had students say that. But this is a symbol of maybe what could come. You ladies all want to emulate this, right? You want to have a green wedding dress, right? No. What's the color of wedding dresses? White, which is a symbol of what? Purity. So in a day, in 1434, you see circa there, C period, around that time. That was the way that they showed the idea of the marriage being producing children, being fertile, and so they showed what was to be, not that she was pregnant. But I want to show you a close-up of something else in this. Now, you see the mirror there. Van Eyck was precision. He showed actually himself in this, the priest, and you see the Stations of the Cross, so it's a holy ceremony, and he even signed it big and flourish there. But I wanted to show you this. This is a candelabra. No electric lights in 1434. So they lit the candles. But how many candles do you count burning? How many candles do you count? Just one, right? This is a symbol of the presence of God at this holy ceremony. So that candle symbolized the total impact of this wedding being a vow, not only to one another, but before God. So you wouldn't know this if you saw this painting, right? But sometimes you have to dig and figure out the symbols, and they may be in the culture of the times. We still got a little time. Suliki Boabdella, I'm not sure if that's exactly right, but she had a French background, but she was Algerian, and she was in the Muslim faith. But she did this, and this is not in your text, but I wanted to show you this. Now, shoes, fancy gold shoes, women's shoes, on a prayer rug. What's wrong with this picture? Yeah, well, women weren't there with the men usually. Now, there are separate areas where women can kneel and pray. But the shoes on the prayer rug, you're supposed to take them off, right? You're on holy ground. And so you kneel on this prayer rug. But here she's saying, I wanted to show the dichotomy. And she said, I really think it's wrong, some things that are in my culture. I respect it, but women's place in this culture is not respected in many cases. So she's making a point with her art and cutting a hole in the prayer rug and then putting these fancy gold shoes in there. So this was very controversial when it was shown. And a lot of people protested this. She wasn't harmed, thank goodness. There are people that are willing to do that. Now, I want to talk about the power and value of art, and we'll continue this next time. What's valuable? What gives something value? It's variable, isn't it? If you want to sell something for a certain amount of money, then if somebody has that much money, it's worth that much. Here's a rare blue diamond that was recently discovered. That's one of the rarest of diamonds. Are diamonds really rare? They're really not, right? They mine maybe thousands every day in different mines around the world. And they control the output of them so that they keep the value up, but they're still beautiful. Here's that diamond. Here's the Hope diamond, which was cut into 45 karat diamond. That's, by the way, in the Smithsonian. When we were there, I went up to the guard and I said, "We're here to reclaim the family jewels," told him my name. He didn't even smile. Beautiful. Have any of you ever been to this place just to the west of Little Rock in Arkansas? It's a state park. That building there survives from the original diamond mine, and this is a volcanic vent. Diamonds are formed under extreme heat and pressure, right? And there was a volcano here in the middle of Arkansas. Who knew at one time? And so they were digging down and actually mining these diamonds, but the state bought it, and it became a state park where you can go, you can pay $10 or $15 and go in there and dig all day. I've crawled around on my knees in the mud 2 different times, camped out there for a couple of days. Didn't find anything, but we had fun. But there was someone who found a diamond that we were there that day. The only perfect diamond ever found was found here. This is the Uncle Sam diamond, found in 1924, valued. That's what it looked like. But here's the Strong Wagner diamond that was found here, the only perfect diamond ever found anywhere. And it was found there in Arkansas. And that's what it looked like after it was cut. Pretty incredible. Looks like just like a chip of glass, right? Pretty amazing. And this young lady found this one in 2013, which is a yellow diamond. And that's the size of a coin there. But you get to keep it. Now, I'll stop here in just a minute, but does anyone collect baseball cards? Any of you guys? Used to? I think the price of this went up. I had this in 2013, but I think it just sold. The Honus Wagner card, which is early. I think this was not a bubblegum card, a tobacco card. That was a baseball card, and Honus Wagner is a pretty rare card if it's in good condition. I think it was something like $4 million. I'll have to look that up. I meant to, but how could a piece of paper printed with an image be worth that much? Well, if someone is willing to pay $2 or $3 or $4 million, it's worth that much, right? So value. Now I'm going to relate this back to art later. I was a big fan of Superman. He didn't have his own comics when he started out. He was in Action Comics in 1938. This sold for over $10 million, and then this guy had this one he found in the attic. It was in great condition. And signatures like William Shakespeare didn't sign all that many things. $3.8 million. Someone clipped a lock of Abraham Lincoln's hair when he was on his deathbed. And so the provenance and all from that, they had signatures from the Surgeon General that this was his hair, sold for more than $800,000. I had a student one time that was outraged that they would cut his hair off. But so what's value? Now, I want to talk about this in a minute, but I'm going to get to this thing on Thursday and talk about what I thought I was going to get there and it skipped. Yeah, I'll get there next time. Okay. So, this idea of what value is, I want to talk about more later, but this has just been sort of a survey, so I gave you just a few notes. Next time we'll really focus more on some things that I want you to remember from this chapter. My idea is, if my computer doesn't crash again at home, my idea is to give you a study guide on Thursday, and then to review, and the following week from today, review and have our first exam, which will be only 10 questions. So I'm leading you along very slowly at first here. So any questions before y'all go? All right, good. Be safe. If you have something to send me about artwork that you've seen, send it to me. I appreciate you staying with me, and y'all take care. Be safe. Stay well. Yeah, if you want to write me anything more about your artwork that you saw, send it to me, okay? If you want to write something else about the artwork that you saw, send it to me and I'll give you credit. Yes, ma'am.
When I was there, I was looking for people who are interested. My friend was like, "Hey, what's up?" So I was like, okay, I guess I'll go. Thanks for the stickers, man.
Yeah.
That was nice.
I'll still give you credit for what you did. No. Yes. I'm gonna give you a study guide on Thursday, and I'll put that, I'll probably send it as an email, because a lot of people have trouble with Blackboard already. So, don't worry about Blackboard. No assignments, no. And, if you need the link, and you need to go back and watch the recording or anything, but don't get me started right now. Yes, sir.
I want to visit the Flamingo to a wedding tomorrow.